Welcome to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. We gonna get right into it. So I was thinking about this the other day. I was watching the 1986 NBA Finals. Out of the DVD, he said all 6 games of the Boston Celtics, and I was watching how they just took apart the Houston Rockets in the '86 finals. Okay, and I'm like, that the '86 Celtics are a top 5 team of all time. Of all time great 8 teams in NBA history. I would say the '86 Celtics are a top 5 team. If I had to do a list, and this is probably going to spark some debate among people, I would say the '96 Bulls are 1. The '86 Celtics 2, the '80s Lakers 3, the '60s Celtics 4, and I would have to say the Golden State Warriors of the 2010s 5. Now, I know I probably left out the Spurs of the 2000s, the Lakers of the 2000s. I would say those are top 10 teams, top 10 greatest teams of all time. But those are the top 5. Now, that's probably going to spark some debate, but the way that the '86 Celtics just took apart opponents. They were 40-1 at home that year. 85-86, they were 40-1 at home. And their only loss was to the Portland Trail Blazers, who beat them pretty handily at home. So their only loss was to the Portland Trail Blazers that year. So I would put the '86 Celtics right up there with the '96 Bulls, the Dynasty Warriors, the '60s Celtics, and the '80s Lakers. I would put them right up there with them. I would. So the Mitch Richmond Chris Webber trade. Okay. So this was a pre-lockout trade. This was a pre-lockout trade. It was a draft day trade, if I'm not mistaken. A draft day trade. And Chris Webber had gotten into some trouble in Washington. Off the court, and his reputation was not a good reputation. I think he had pending charges for assault when he was traded to Sacramento. He really didn't want to be there. He really didn't want to be in Sacramento. He wanted it to stay in Washington. You know, him and Juwan Howard, the Michigan connection. The Wizards had finished 42-40 in 1997-98, and the Kings were coming off a 27-55 1998 season, and so Webber was disappointed he was traded to a team he didn't want to go to. Richmond was disappointed because he had been in Sacramento for so long, and when the lockout was over, and training camp started, which was only 2 weeks for the 1999 season. Chris Webber recalls seeing Jason Williams doing some of the things that he was doing in training camp, and Chris Webber recalls Jason Williams hit him in the face with a basketball from a pass, and then Chris Webber was kind of like laughing. He was like, "Yeah, this is going to be fun." So the Kings ended up making the playoffs that year. They almost got the Utah Jazz in 5 games. They almost got the Utah Jazz in 5 games. Just think about this for a second, okay? Think about this for a second. The Knicks knocked off the Miami Heat in the East. The Knicks were in the 8th seed that year. The Miami Heat were 1. The Kings were an 8th seed. The Utah Jazz were the 1 seed. And we could have had 2 8 seeds advancing that year. 1998-99, that was just a weird year. Because of the lockout, that was just a weird year. A very weird year. And so, we could have had 2 number 8 seeds advancing out of the first round of that year. That's crazy. If John Stockton didn't hit that shot in Game 4, if John Stockton did not hit that shot in Game 4, we would have had 2 number 8 seeds advancing. But Stockton came off the head screen and he hit the shot. And the Kings had him in Game 5. The Kings had him in Game 5. But the Jazz ended up winning in overtime, though. So, but yeah, the Kings, that was the start of their turn around. So it turned out to be pretty good for Chris Webber. For Mitch Richmond, not so good. The Wizards were a bad team in 98-99. They were a bad team in 99-2000. And they were a bad team in 2001. And so Mitch Richmond wanted to go to a contender. And he ended up signing with the Lakers. And who shall the Lakers meet in the 2002 Western Conference Finals? Richmond's old team, the Sacramento Kings. Mitch Richmond said this. He said it was tough to see Sacramento turning it around without him. Now he's facing his former team, the Sacramento Kings, in the 2002 Western Conference Finals. And the Lakers win in 7 games. Mitch Richmond wins his first championship. And I know for me, I was happy for Mitch Richmond. I was happy for Mitch Richmond getting his first championship with the Lakers. And I can only imagine what he was feeling beating his former team in the Western Conference Finals. I can only imagine what he was feeling beating his former team in the Western Conference Finals. So it turned out pretty good for both players. Not so for Richmond with the Wizards, but with the Lakers. So yeah. Another pre-lockout trade that went through, the Marcus Camby trade. He was traded for Charles Oakley. That was a pre-lockout trade. And Chris Webber didn't want to be in Sacramento. Jeff Van Gundy really didn't want Marcus Camby either. They really didn't want Marcus Camby either. The fans weren't sure what to make of the Marcus Camby trade. The New York fans weren't sure what to make of it. And so I didn't know this. Jeff Van Gundy really didn't want Marcus Camby because he was seen as a guy who didn't have a good work ethic. And they talked about this on the broadcast of the Eastern Conference Finals. They were saying he was a different kind of player. The New York Knicks just really misread him. That's what had happened. And like I said, he didn't come to New York with the best work ethic. Not wanted by Jeff Van Gundy, but Camby himself said it was the support of Larry Johnson that got him through the rough parts of the 98-99 season. So Larry Johnson was supported him the whole time. And so he really came to life in the NBA playoffs. The dunks that he had against Miami in the playoffs. The dunk he had over Mutombo in the second round against the Hawks. The dunks he had against the Pacers. I still remember those dunks. It just seemed like he was putting back. He was dunking over people's heads, putting back dunks. And it just seemed like he was doing that in the first round, the second round, the third round, the NBA Finals. He just had the most spectacular dunks I've ever seen in the 99 playoffs. It ended up working out pretty well for Marcus Camby. Ended up working out pretty well for Charles Oakley too, because the Toronto Raptors improved. That was the year they had Vince Carter, rookie Vince Carter, and ironically, Camby ended up facing the Toronto Raptors the next year in the first round. The Knicks swept the Raptors 3-0 in the 2000 NBA playoffs. Okay. So worked out pretty well for Chris Webber in Sacramento. Didn't work out so well for Mitch Richmond in Washington, but at the end of his career with the Lakers, worked out well for Camby, worked out well for Charles Oakley. 86 Celtics, a top 5 team in NBA history. So there you have it. I was an NBA on NBC junkie, okay? Okay? Like I said, I'm a throwback jersey collector. I'm a throwback person, okay? So like I'm old school. I'm old school, okay? And I was the biggest NBA on NBC junkie there was, okay? But yeah. All right. That's it for the for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. Almost said Sean Farrell podcast for a second, but that's it for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I'm gonna be bringing y'all more content. Peace out, y'all. Be blessed.